There's a whole array of feeds out there for your chickens. Today I'm going to talk about what goes into prepared chicken foods so that you can make the right choice for your flock. A trip to the feed merchant can be a daunting prospect for any chicken keeper. There's a huge array of food types on offer. There's formats like crumb, micropellets, pellets. There's food for chicks, for growing chickens and for laying chickens. There's also raw ingredients like whole wheat, dried maize kibble, split peas. So what are the right choices for the chickens that you keep? What I'd like to do is start on the types of things which go into pelleted chicken food and processed chicken food. Let's begin there. There are three elements that go into the manufacture of prepared chicken feeds. The largest are grains, and that will be things like whole wheat or rye or barley. The second element are proteins, and those are most commonly soy protein or pea protein. The third element, which are important, are your minerals and additives like fats and oils or calcium. And depending on the stage of life that your chicken is at, they're going to need different elements of those three components. So let's have a look at the first stage of a chicken's life, and that's chick, and we'll have a look at the prepared foods that are available to them. At the start of your chickens' lives, they are going through a period of rapid growth. And at the start of their life, I'm looking at 0 to 6 to 8 weeks. Protein content, because they're growing so quickly, is probably the most important consideration. And most prepared chicken food out there on the market contains roughly around 20% protein. There are two main formats that you can look at. There's the crumb version, which is just a fine crumb. And this is because chicks can't really eat pellets very, very easily. This is the most common format available to you. However, there's a number of manufacturers out there now who are making a micro pellet. Now, we personally prefer the micropellet, and it's simply because even though these are more common in the crumb format, the micropellet tends to make less mess. The crumb gets everywhere, whereas the chicks tend to eat it discreetly, and it's far easier to clean up after. The other consideration for your chicks at this stage is, do you want a medicated feed? There is a parasitic gut infestation called coccidiosis, which can be very deadly at this early stage of life. A medicated chick feed will actually kill this parasite, or at least prevent them from absorbing any nutrients so that they do die and stop the infestation. But it's entirely up to you what your appetite is for medicating your chicks at such an early age. I know a lot of people prefer not to, and a lot do. So that has to be your choice. There's just one more format of food that I'd like to show you that you might be tempted to feed to your chicks at a young age, because it's similar in consistency to chick crumb, and that's layers mash. I would say please don't do this, and that's because it contains calcium levels of higher than 1 to 1.5%, and there is evidence to say that calcium levels for chickens who are not yet laying, which includes chicks and growing pullets, that it could damage their kidneys. So please leave feeding this until they're old enough to be laying eggs. Let's take a closer look at these two different types of food for your chicks. On the left, we've got chick crumb, and as you can see, it's just fine granules. These are very easy for chicks to eat and very easy to digest. On the right, we've got the micro pellets. They are also very easy for the chicks to eat and digest, and they can be eaten from day one of their lives. So both of these food types are very good choices for your chicks. At the next stage of life, your chickens have got past the 6 to 8 weeks and they can actually consume a larger size of pellet. At this stage, they are still going through a lot of growth, but the protein content can be reduced to 16 to 18%, and we need a higher energy content with more cereals. But it's important to keep the calcium content down to 1% still, because you don't need that calcium to form eggs. Your food at this point could still be medicated or unmedicated, so it's important to check that when you go to your feed merchant. But this is the most common type of food to give to your chickens at this stage, and it's a grower's pellet. As you can see, it's a little bit bigger than the micro pellets that we saw at the chick stage, but it's still essentially the same format. Shortly before your chickens start to lay, so roughly about 2 weeks before the expected point, the chickens should be moved on to a layers type of food. And there are two big formats. There's pellets or there's mash. Now let's deal with the pellets first. And this is what they look like. They look almost identical to growers' pellets. And actually I'm just going to reach across, pick up the growers so you can see. Almost exactly the same, and I'll give you a close-up in a little while. The difference is in their composition. At this stage, calcium changes from 1% to roughly about 3.5%, so it goes up significantly. And protein reduces to between 15 to 18%. So with growers, it was 16 to 18. For layers, it's 15 to 18. But at this stage, usually the food is unmedicated because chickens are far more able to cope with that parasite in the gut should they have it. And you'd be looking at other medication treatments. Here's a quick close-up of those pellets, the growers and the layers side by side. On the left, there's the growers' pellets. On the right, the layers. So the growers have 1% calcium and 16 to 18% protein. The layers have 15 to 18% protein, but a larger calcium content at 3.5%. There's a slight variation in colour between the two pellets, but other than that, they're virtually indistinguishable. Earlier we saw layers mash, and this can be fed dry to your chickens as an alternative to layers pellets, but we like to add some hot water to it. After 5 minutes it's soaked in. We then test it to make sure it's cool enough for the chickens to eat, and then they have it as a warm treat, something to just get them a little bit warmer on a cold winter morning. Warm treats aren't just limited to layers mash. You can do exactly the same treatment by adding water to pelleted chicken food. Here we're adding hot water to growers' pellets. Once the water has been absorbed and once we've tested the mixture to make sure it's cool enough for the chickens to eat, we'll give it to them as a lovely warming treat. Here are 3 additional options to give your chickens, and we give them to our chickens at various different times. The first option is whole wheat. We give this as a treat on its own during the spring and summer months. The chickens absolutely love it, and buying a 20 kilo sack makes it an incredibly cheap treat for our chickens. In the middle, we've got Dry's maize kibble. Now this is essentially dried corn, and it has the wonderful advantage of increasing the chicken's body temperature. Now that's wonderful because if you give it to them 1 hour before they go to roost in autumn and winter when it's a lot colder at night, they are warmer in the coop. It really does help them. On the right, we've got split peas. Now these are a great source of protein, and we'll give this as a supplement during the molting period when the chickens are forming a lot more feathers. You can buy all 3 of these in a pre-mix, and it's normally labelled mixed corn at your feed merchant. We instead like to buy them separately, and we'll mix them in different proportions according to the particular need and the time of year. That's a brief explanation of the food types available to your chickens. If you have liked this content, take a moment and give me a thumbs up below. If you're not already a subscriber, hit the subscribe button and the bell icon and you'll be notified of any new videos as soon as they're published. If you've got any questions for me, or if there's a video you'd like to see in the future, leave it in the comments section and we'll do our best to get back to you or to make that video for you in the future. Thanks for watching, and we look forward to seeing you next time.